So as a result of maxing out all the spots in my little rimless frag tank inside the garage and running out of spots in the big reef tank inside the house to place new frags and corals, along with a real frustration on my part with something or somebody in the tank inside the house continually knocking things over because I'm always having to reposition corals, I've decided to basically abandon both this little frag tank and the tank inside the house as far as the addition of adding new corals. What I have decided to do is to add an entirely new big frag tank. And so the new frag tank is a big glass tank made to my dimensions to fit this table that I built out here. The tank is 60 inches long. It's 30 inches wide, but it's only 20 inches tall. So there's a lot of room in there for the lateral and horizontal growth of corals, as well as adequate room for height, but at the same time, adequate room for light penetration. The length of it is maxing out the table that I have, and the whole idea is to create what I'm going to kind of call a surge type reef or coral frag tank, meaning there's going to be 2 rows of rock down through either side of the tank, of which a trough or a surge zone will move back and forth through the center of it. We'll have a pump at one end of the tank and the overflow at the other end of the tank. Let me show you some of the features of this big glass frag tank. So as I mentioned, the tank is 60 inches long, it's 30 inches wide, but it's only 20 inches tall. It'll make for a fat, wide tank. It'll have 2 rows of live rock, one down across the back of the tank and one slightly away from the inside front of the tank, with a large trough or surge zone down through the center. This being a glass tank, the advantage was it was slightly less expensive, but the bigger advantage is as I grow calcareous algae inside here, I can comfortably get in and clean the tank with a razor blade and not have to worry about scratching the glass. I had the tank specifically made to my dimensions to fit this particular table that I've built out here. I also requested that it have a rim on the inside of the tank, similar to an acrylic tank and unlike a typical glass tank. And the advantage of the rim is it will minimize the salt creep that runs over the edge of a typical glass tank. I also had a hole cut in the rim at this end of the tank so that I can run a power cord through there for a pump inside the tank, providing internal circulation, and I don't have to worry about that power cord having to lean way out and then come back in. It'll kind of snugly be tucked to the inside edge of the tank and won't be as distractive looking. There's a few glass straps across the top of the tank. I haven't decided yet exactly what kind of lights are going to go on the tank. My intent would be 3 of them over each one of those 3 openings. At this far end of the tank is the internal overflow, which will have a Durzo standpipe inside of it. That's also where the return from the filter system down below will be, and that'll come through there. As I mentioned, it'll also have some internal circulation, and then it'll have a sump sitting down below, of which I need to get in and clean out that stuff that's stored down there. I think this being the sump over here with some of the components on it. So, first thing that we need to do is to get in here and drill out the holes for the plumbing lines to pass through the bottom of the tank. And what that means is I'm going to have to slide the tank to the side on the stand a little bit and get in there and cut those holes. So, let's get to work. So we've got the tank slid over on the stand a little bit. The holes have been marked. I've pre-drilled the starter or pilot holes. There'll be 2 large round holes, significantly larger than the bulkheads themselves, which will allow easy access from the underside in the future should I need to get in there for additional tightening or replacing. So we're going to go ahead and carefully drill those holes at this time. So the two new holes are drilled. Again, they're much larger than the holes that are needed for the bulkheads to pass through. I've also got a can of paint here that I'm going to take and just dab some paint on the interior of those holes just to help weatherproof or waterproof the interior of the plywood top there. So while the paint is drying up there on the underside of the stand, I think it's time to kind of clear out some of this stuff that I have stored down here so I can make room for the filter system.
Part of my reason for the new tank is I'm tired of the snails in my main tank constantly knocking over the corals that I have to continually reposition. But I've also maxed out the smaller JBJ rimless coral frag tank with my current collection of corals. And as every hobbyist knows, you can never have too big a tank, right?
And now that I've got the space down here cleared out, I've slid the Euro style sump into place. I haven't pulled the plastic off of it yet. I have placed it on some styrofoam pads as some possible insulation. There's even some styrofoam on the back side of it. At the very least, it'll help protect the wood there. I've got the pump and the return manifold kind of pseudo-assembled, and I brought over a chiller which will become part of the plumbing system, not intentionally to be used to chill the tank, but just as a upper high-end means of controlling the water temperature. And then I also screwed and attached a plywood board here at the end of the stand to give the entire stand a little shear strength, as it seemed to be just a slight bit wobblier than what I would feel comfortable with previously. So one of the other things I need to do is now secure some power strips so I've got some power on the underside of the stand, and I need to decide where to do that. I need to decide where exactly is the best place to place the sump, because the drain lines will come right there, so I kind of think having the sump right down there would be the best spot. It also is pushed over towards this end, which does kind of give me a little bit of space here. So I think I'm going to start working on the electrical part of it. One of the other things that I do need to do is this line right here is part of the plumbing system from the large 300-gallon or dual 300-gallon containers that are at the front of the garage, which can supply the mixed up salt water as well as the reverse osmosis water. So what I think I'm going to do is probably tap into that line there, run another line with a valve over to the overflow, which will be where the new water is introduced. I considered putting it straight into the tank, but I think I like the idea of having it go into the overflow, which would go directly down to the sump first. And then one of the other things I need to do, also from that 300-gallon reverse osmosis freshwater container up front, is tap into a line that is up here that carries a 1/4-inch flexible PVC line that will become the supply for the automated top-off, because this system will have some ATO switches in there that'll not so much monitor, although I will be monitoring via my Apex the salinity and temperature, but I want to control top-off in this system, namely because this little JBJ 45 cube, which is done real well, is controlled as far as top-off is concerned by me opening up the valve and allowing the water to replace it. And this tank has gotten a couple of times a little out of control salinity-wise, whereas this tank here will have much greater volume and many more corals in there, and I want to be a little bit more careful and I want to control it a little bit better. So once again, it's time to get to work.
GHL is widely recognized for the most reliable and future-proof aquarium controllers, dosers, and aquarium LED lighting on the market. Designed and manufactured in Germany, all GHL products are built with the highest quality and standards. The GHL Profilux 4 raises the bar to a whole new level. Featuring built-in Wi-Fi, the Profilux 4 can be connected to your network wirelessly and be monitored and controlled from anywhere. With integrated ports for temperature, pH, ORP, conductivity, and dissolved oxygen, you can monitor virtually anything. Built-in expansion ports and optional flow sensors allow the Profilux 4 to scale to meet the needs of even the most advanced aquarium installations without the need for additional add-on modules. The new GHL Doser 2.1 takes dosing to the extreme with integrated Wi-Fi for wireless management. It includes inputs for level sensors, a temperature probe, and an output for a magnetic stirrer, making it an ideal solution for everything from dosing, automatic top-off, automated water changes, and even automated feeding. The GHL Mitras are the most powerful and flexible LEDs in their class. The 7206's built-in wireless control makes for fast and easy setup, while the GHL Light Composer allows users to easily set up their spectrum and lighting schedule. 6 individual LED clusters provide the industry's best blending of LED channels while also providing the best spread. 9 channels of control allow you to tailor your lighting scheme to meet the needs of even the most difficult to keep corals while also bringing out colors in corals and fish that would otherwise remain unseen. All GHL products can be controlled via the GHL Control Center application as well as the My GHL Cloud interface, allowing for monitoring, control, and management from anywhere via an internet connection. The unique interface eliminates the need for coding while providing advanced programming functionality unrivaled by the competition. If you're looking for the best controllers, dosers, and lighting on the market, then GHL has a product to fit your needs. For more information, visit aquariumcomputer.com.
Hi there, my name's Jim Stime and you know me as the LA Fish Guy. Well, I also wear a couple of other hats. One of them is the jellyfish tank called the Jelly Aquarium, and the third is myfishtank.com. I offer an entire line of acrylic aquariums ranging from rectangular to hexagon, flatback hex, as well as the custom curve front aquariums. There's also an entire line of stands and canopies ranging from MDF to pine to oak with a variety of different finishes available. And the website is even smart enough that you can calculate what the freight and crate charges to your location will be. That's myfishtank.com.
Reef Hobbyist magazine believes that our hobby, our fellow hobbyists, and the animals in our care are best served by the free distribution of quality information. Reef Hobbyist magazine provides hobbyists with critical husbandry information with an emphasis on marine ornamental breeding efforts. Reef Hobbyist magazine is available for free in local fish stores across the country, or you can subscribe at www.reefhobbyistmagazine.com.
So we got the electrical power strip mounted on the underside of the big wooden stand. Other than potential drips off the tank, of which they'd have to work their way around the outside and then back up the inside of the stand, I think that's a pretty safe place. Additionally, I ran a separate extension cord to a completely different outlet, which is also on a different circuit. I considered tapping into this electrical power strip, which also has a second daisy chain power strip there, and I could have run a line on the underside there and mounted this power strip onto that, but I just simply decided it was just too much equipment attached to that tank on one circuit. And the reality is that I don't know if you can see this, there's an electrical junction box right up there, and that's where a lot of other things, including this frag tank here, are all attached to. So I decided I didn't want to potentially overload that circuit. So this power strip, where are we here? This power strip is on a completely different circuit, which will separate this tank because
it'll have 2 or 3 relatively large LED coral growing lights, a water pump, a heater, and potentially this chiller if it gets hot, all on that circuit. So, having said that, I've got the electrical into place. Now, the next step is to start the plumbing, and I think what I'll probably do is connect the bulkheads into the bottom of the tank for the drain as well as the return lines, and then once we're done there, I'll start working on the plumbing, this being the manifold for the DC pump. Decided to go with a current brand Efflux DC pump. I'll explain that that decision in a bit, but this being the discharge manifold which will return water to the tank and send water to the chiller. So let's go ahead and start working on the bulkheads in the bottom of the tank. So here's my internal overflow inside this large glass frag tank. It's a relatively large overflow, I want to say 8 by 10. I also have the holes already pre-drilled at the bottom of the tank, and these are the return assembly and drain assembly. The drain assembly is what's referred to as a Durzo standpipe, and the return assembly is the plumbing items that'll connect through the bottom of the tank and actually allow the water to return through that hole just under the surface at the top of the tank. The advantage of being just under the surface is this eliminates the need to have check valves in line, which are not 100% fail-safe. And this way, as long as the return line is just slightly below the surface, when the power goes out and water begins to back siphon or drain backwards through the return line, it being just under the surface will quickly and eventually begin to suck air, which in turn will break that siphon, thus eliminating water being returned down to the filter and the potential of an overflow. As I mentioned, this is the return line and the drain line, and for those of you who possibly would be ordering a tank via myfishtank.com, which is my website that offers acrylic aquariums with internal overflows, you would be receiving all of the plumbing, in this case either a sponge pre-filter for a 1-inch bulkhead drain line or the Durzo standpipe for a 1.5-inch drain line, as well as the return line. So my point is, these are all the components that we're going to install now into the internal overflow that will allow the return to come through the bottom of the tank, exiting the top of the internal overflow. It'll also allow for water to drain out of the tank via the internal overflow down to the wet-dry trickle filter. So all of these components make up a complete return and drain assembly. So let's go ahead and get those in position now. So I've got the return nozzle bulkhead and discharge tips placed through the top of the overflow, and I've got the threaded elbowed hose barb threaded into the bulkhead. I also have a coffee cup over here with the balance of the return assembly stuck into the coffee cup, and that's boiling water in there. And the advantage of the boiling water with the end of the flexible PVC tubing submersed in there is that tubing will become soft and pliable, and when it goes or comes time to slip it over that bulkhead, it'll be much easier. Also the fact that when that tubing cools down, it'll conform around the hose barbs. Now I wanted to point out something here. You'll notice that there is Teflon tape used on that threaded fitting. There's a couple of different schools of thought here as far as what to use to secure threaded fittings, being pipe dope being one, or Teflon tape being the other. I kind of thought I was going to go ahead and use the pipe dope, because I have lots of containers of it sitting around. But you know something? Not only does that stuff get all over your fingers and is kind of a mess, but the reality is when I went to open up the container of pipe dope, it was all dried up. You know, the irony is Teflon tape, regardless as to how long it's sitting around, unless it's used up, is always ready and doesn't dry out, at least nowhere near where the pipe dope is. So my decision to use Teflon tape was a no-brainer. Okay, so I've got the tubing which has been sitting in the coffee cup of boiling water for a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and place the return bulkhead down in the bottom of the hole, and then I'm going to go ahead and slip the tubing over that hose barb fitting. And as you can see, the return assembly is in place. Nice taut straight tubing down to the bulkhead at the bottom. Should be no leaks and no drips, and is a slick and hidden means of returning the water back into the aquarium by passing through the internal overflow. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the Durzo standpipe drain assembly into place.